The rain had not ceased for 3 days. It fell in long, silver threads that blurred the hills and drowned the sound of birds. Beneath that endless downpour stood a small log cabin, its roof patched with tin and moss, its chimney breathing faint smoke. Inside, a young woman moved slowly between the dim rooms, her quiet hands tending to what little life remained, a kettle hissing on the stove, a damp shawl hung by the fire, a single chair turned toward the window. Her name was Evelyn Grace, though few remembered it. Most in Dry Creek simply called her the Woman of the Woods. She had lived alone for nearly 5 years, ever since the flood took her family and her faith in the world. The town whispered that she'd gone strange from solitude, that she spoke to ghosts and slept with her door unlatched for spirits to pass through. They did not know the truth, that she simply could not bear locking anything out anymore. That evening, the rain deepened, the kind that made the air taste like metal. Evelyn was stacking firewood when she heard it, the distant thud of hooves, muffled by mud and mist. She froze. Visitors never came this far. The road beyond her fence had long since turned to a stream, and only the desperate would ride through weather like this. 2 figures emerged through the sheet of rain, riders slumped and weary, horses slick with mud. The taller one dismounted first, moving with the slow certainty of someone used to storms. He removed his hat, revealing dark hair plastered to his forehead. "Evenin', ma'am," he said, his voice low, calm. "We're looking for shelter, just till the storm lets up." Behind him, the second man grinned through the rain, his tone lighter though his eyes were rimmed with exhaustion. "Promise we won't be trouble. We'll work for our keep. Fix that fence that's leanin' if you let us stay." Evelyn hesitated, fingers tightening on the wood in her arms. She knew what people said about men who knocked on a lone woman's door. She also knew the sound of sincerity when it cut through the cold. After a long pause, she nodded. "The barn's no good, roof leaks. You can come in. Leave your coats by the fire." They entered, dripping and shivering, bringing the smell of rain and horses with them. The taller one, Wyatt, crouched near the hearth, coaxing the flame higher, while the other, Cole, clapped his hands for warmth and chuckled softly at the steam rising from his boots. Evelyn ladled stew into 3 chipped bowls. None of them spoke much, only the fire crackled, the rain whispered, and for the first time in years, another heartbeat echoed in that lonely room. Cole was the first to break the silence. "You live out here all by yourself? Ain't seen a house for miles." "I prefer it that way," she said simply. Wyatt lifted his gaze then, his eyes steady, quiet. "That must take strength." Evelyn didn't answer, but something flickered in her expression. Surprise, maybe gratitude. It had been a long time since anyone called her strong instead of strange. As the storm thickened, the walls seemed to draw closer, the air heavy with heat and the scent of wet leather. Wyatt mended a loose hinge on her window without being asked. Cole cleaned the ashes from the hearth, whistling softly. Their presence unsettled her, yet it also filled the cabin with a forgotten warmth. Not comfort, exactly, but reminder. By morning, the rain had gentled to a steady drizzle. Evelyn stepped outside to fill a pail, and through the veil of mist she saw the sheriff's horse on the trail. He raised a hand in greeting, but his eyes lingered too long on the smoke curling from her chimney. She knew what that look meant. By nightfall, tongues would wag in Dry Creek, about the woman alone with 2 drifters. The day passed under a thin sun, but her unease grew. When she finally rode into town for flour, the air felt thick with watching. 2 women by the general store fell silent as she passed. A man at the hitching post smirked and spat into the mud. "Didn't know you were talking boarders, Evelyn," he muttered. "Or is it something else they're payin' for?" Her hands trembled as she counted coins at the counter. The sound of laughter followed her out. When she returned to the cabin, Wyatt was chopping wood, sleeves rolled, his motions slow and steady. Cole was cleaning the saddles, humming to himself. She stopped by the door, unable to speak. The weight of the town's judgment pressed against her ribs. Wyatt looked up and, seeing her face, said quietly, "They been cruel?" Her throat tightened. "They always are." He nodded, jaw set. People fear what doesn't fit their shape of the world. That night, thunder rolled again over the valley. Evelyn sat on the porch, staring into the rain, her shawl soaked through. She tried to listen to the rhythm of it, to lose herself in its steady sound, but her thoughts kept circling back to the town's words. Shame, old and familiar, crept up her spine like cold water. She didn't hear Wyatt approach until he set a lantern down beside her. Its light trembled in the wind. He didn't speak at first. Just stood there, looking out into the dark woods as though he understood that sometimes silence was the only kindness left. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough with something deeper than weariness. "Let him talk," he said. "You can't stop a mouth in this world, but you can choose not to bow to it." She looked at him, uncertain. "And what would you have me do?" He met her eyes, rain streaking across his face. "If it keeps you safe, if it shuts him up, act like you're mine." The words hung between them, not a claim but a shield. His tone carried no hunger, no pride, only the quiet promise of protection, of understanding. The fire inside the cabin flickered, and the rain softened around them, as if listening. Evelyn turned away, heart thudding in a rhythm she couldn't name. 4 years she'd lived untouched by anything but weather and memory. Now, beneath the storm's endless hum, something in her began to thaw, a feeling small and frightened, but alive. She didn't answer him. Not yet. But when she finally rose to go inside, she left the door unlatched behind her. Outside, the rain kept falling, soft and endless, washing the night clean for whatever might come next. By dawn, the storm had faded into a hush. Mist coiled through the valley, clinging to the wet pines, and the cabin smelled of wood smoke and damp earth. Wyatt was already outside, splitting logs with a slow, measured rhythm. Each swing of the axe echoed like a heartbeat in the quiet. Evelyn watched him from the doorway, her hands wrapped around a tin cup of coffee. There was a steadiness about him she had not known in years, a calm born not of peace but of having survived too much to be shaken by anything else. Cole stumbled out behind him, yawning, complaining about the cold, his easy laughter breaking the silence like a sparrow through fog. He was the opposite of Wyatt, talkative, brash, but loyal in a way that softened his rough edges. Together, they filled the cabin with a strange balance of noise and comfort. Evelyn had grown used to their presence, though she tried not to show it. The sound of men's boots had once meant danger, now it meant warmth, protection, life stirring again in the quiet corners of her heart. The gossip, however, had not faded with the storm. Word had spread through Dry Creek faster than floodwater. When Wyatt rode into town to trade for supplies, he felt the eyes on him, the way men looked too long and women looked away too quickly. The sheriff stopped him by the trough, thumb hooked through his belt. "You and your friend best be movin' on soon," he said, voice heavy with unspoken threat. "That woman's had enough sorrow without you makin' more of it." Wyatt didn't answer, just tipped his hat and rode on, but the warning stayed with him like a splinter beneath the skin. By the time he returned to the cabin, rain had begun again, soft, persistent. Evelyn met him on the porch. "They want you gone," she said quietly. He nodded. "They always do." His tone held no anger, only the weariness of someone who'd seen this story play out before. Cole tried to make light of it, whittling a stick by the hearth that evening. "Let him talk. A little scandal makes the world feel alive. Besides, I've had worse said about me." But even his grin faltered when the sound of horses carried through the rain that night. 3, maybe 4, stopping near the fence line. Voices drifted in the dark, low and bitter. Evelyn froze. Wyatt's jaw tightened. "Stay inside," he said. She shook her head. "It's my home." They stepped out together into the rain. Lanterns flickered at the edge of the clearing, faces half hidden by hats, eyes burning with small-town righteousness. The man in front, a rancher named Briggs, spat into the mud. "Didn't we tell you to stay away from her, cowboy?" he shouted. "You're bringin' shame to this place." Wyatt stood still, his rifle resting but ready at his side. Ain't your place to decide who deserves warmth, he said. Briggs sneered. You think we'll let her ruin herself for a drifter? We're settin' things right. Evelyn stepped forward, bare feet sinking into the wet earth. Her hair clung to her face, her dress soaked through, but her voice was steady. You will not speak for me. The rain hissed between them. Briggs moved closer, his temper breaking through the mask of decency. You oughta be grateful the town even lets you shop at their store. The crack of thunder cut him off. Or maybe it was the sound of Wyatt's rifle being cocked. Either way, silence fell hard. Go home, Wyatt said, his voice like gravel and rain. But the men didn't move. One lunged forward, grabbing Evelyn's arm. She cried out, trying to pull free. In a heartbeat, Wyatt was there, shoving the man back. The scuffle was clumsy, desperate, boots slipping in mud, fists colliding, rain blinding them all. A shot fired into the air, Cole's warning. Horses reared. One of the attackers stumbled, cursing, and fled into the darkness. The others followed, their shouts fading into the storm. When it was over, Wyatt was on his knees, one hand pressed against his side where blood mixed with rainwater. Evelyn dropped beside him, trembling. You're hurt, she whispered. He smiled faintly, shaking his head. Just a scrape. But when he met her eyes, something passed between them, not gratitude or pity, but recognition. They were both people who'd been broken by the world and still chose to stand. Cole appeared, panting, eyes darting across the clearing. They're gone for now, he said, voice rough. But they'll talk worse come morning. Evelyn helped Wyatt to his feet, her hands firm beneath his arm. Then let them talk, she said. Inside, the fire burned bright, its glow turning the wet cabin walls to gold. Wyatt sat near it, silent while she cleaned the wound. Her fingers were gentle but sure. You could have died, she murmured. He met her gaze, the corner of his mouth lifting slightly. Told you to act like you're mine. Guess I had to make it look real. Her breath caught, not at the words themselves but at the quiet truth behind them, that his offer had never been pretense, not really. Something in her chest unknotted then, as if a door long barred had opened. She didn't kiss him. She only rested her forehead against his for a moment, the silence between them heavier than any promise. Outside, the storm softened to a drizzle. Cole dozed near the window, his hat tilted over his face, the danger forgotten in exhaustion. The world felt fragile again, but no longer empty. Evelyn sat by the fire until dawn, listening to the even rhythm of Wyatt's breathing. When morning came, the light broke clean over the valley. Mist lifted from the fields, revealing a sky rinsed of shadow. Wyatt stirred, wincing but alive. Cole stretched and muttered something about heading east once the roads dried. Evelyn stepped outside barefoot, the ground cool beneath her feet, the air washed new. The town would keep talking, she knew that now. But she also knew something else. She was no longer afraid of being seen. The rain had taken everything from her once. Now it had given something back. Wyatt joined her on the porch, his arm bandaged, his voice rough but steady. You don't have to act anymore, he said. She turned toward him, the faintest smile touching her lips. Maybe I don't. He looked at her for a long moment before nodding. They stood together, watching the fog unravel across the hills. The world smelled of wet earth and second chances, and somewhere beyond the clearing, a lark began to sing, its voice threading through the quiet morning, fragile, defiant, alive. If someone were to tell their story years later, they might say that a woman once lived alone in the rain until kindness knocked on her door wearing muddy boot. They'd say she learned that love doesn't always arrive with thunder, but sometimes in a whisper that sounds like safety. And in that valley, long after the storms had passed, the rain kept falling, softer now, almost tender, as if it too had learned to stay.